Federal agents have just exposed a massive multi-million-dollar criminal network operating right under our noses in the heart of Chicago. We are tracking breaking developments in a sensational case where a sophisticated crew orchestrated a daylight ambush to steal approximately $24 million in diamonds, sapphires, and gold. This was a clinical, military-style operation, and court documents reveal it was built on a shocking betrayal. The FBI has led the charge, and this story just took a major turn with dramatic simultaneous raids across multiple states and even international coordinates. The target of this investigation was not just the masked gunman, but the brilliant criminal architect who pulled the strings from inside the high-stakes world of insurance fraud, Priya Shankar Mehta, a former fraud investigator for a powerful Lloyd's of London syndicate. The contrast here is alarming. This trusted professional, whose job was to protect high-value cargo, allegedly used her access to confidential route data, vehicle schedules, and manifests to draw a blueprint for a heist. Shankar Mehta has been arrested, but she is only one piece of the puzzle. The FBI's Violent Crimes Task Force, specialized digital teams, and even international partners have busted a whole operation. We can confirm at least 5 key arrests, including the technical expert with military specialized training who physically breached the transport, the logic coordinator who managed the moving parts, and even an international fence. Just 91 seconds of chaos, $24 million was in the wind, leaving 3 guards injured and a major company reeling. We are going to expose exactly how this alleged inside architect, Priya Shankar Mehta, coordinated with standard criminals to hit that incredibly specific standard, exactly how federal investigators decoded their operational security, and how a meticulous palm print set off raids on fortified ranches and European gem houses. You need to see this. To understand how a $24 million fortune vanished in exactly 91 seconds, you have to look past the smoke of the flashbangs and the blinding heat of the thermal lance. You have to look at the central figure who quietly engineered the entire disaster from an office chair. That person is Priya Shankar Mehta. To the professional community in Chicago's high-value transit circles, the 36-year-old was a highly respected asset. She was a brilliant fraud investigator for a Lloyd's of London syndicate specialty unit based right in downtown Chicago. Her public image was that of a razor-sharp corporate shield, someone paid to think like a criminal to protect millions in insured assets. But court documents reveal a completely different reality. Shankar Mehta wasn't just studying structural vulnerabilities for her firm, she was weaponizing them. Her job gave her legitimate, unrestricted access to cargo manifests, precise vehicle schedules, and historical route variance data for high-value clients, including Loomis. In 2023, she actually penned a 40-page internal risk assessment identifying the exact security gap on South Wabash Avenue that would later be exploited. Her syndicate filed the report and ignored it. But Shankar Mehta didn't forget. After being quietly terminated in 2024, following an internal probe into unauthorized file access, she retained copies of those classified logistics. She had the blueprint, she just needed a crew ruthless enough to execute it. Federal prosecutors reveal the same began organizing in late 2025 when Shankar Mehta connected with Teodoro Vance Barrows, a 44-year-old logistics coordinator with deep ties to organized freight theft networks across the Midwest. Barrows was the operational bridge, the man who could turn raw data into a physical ambush. Together, they designed a money flow and an infrastructure designed to baffle federal investigators. The scheme relied on total misdirection. First, they needed a visual screen to hide the getaway. In January and February 2026, Barrows funneled cash payments into a front company registered in Delaware called Meridian Scaffold Solutions. This sham corporation legally filed 41 construction permits across Cook County to look legitimate, but the permit filed for South Wabash Avenue had no materials trail. The scaffolding erected at the scene was built from rented, cash-paid stock, brought in on a truck with paper plates, solely to create a visual blind spot for the cargo vans during the transfer. Next came the firepower. Barrows recruited Marcus Durrell Kane, a 39-year-old former U.S. Army Ranger with 2 prior federal convictions and specialized military expertise in demolitions and breaching technology. The execution was calculated with terrifying precision. At exactly 7:42 a.m. on Tuesday, March 17, 2026, the Loomis Armored Transport Unit 7 Charlie rolled down South Wabash Avenue through Chicago's Jewelers Row. Inside were 3 guards and a cargo worth $24 million, 1,243 cut diamonds, loose sapphires, and bearer-grade gold bullion bound for a secure vault on West Monroe Street. The driver, Gerald Okafor, had run this exact corridor 40 times. He knew the rhythm of the street perfectly, but he had no idea he had been under methodical surveillance for 3 full weeks. The crew had shadowed him, timing intersections with stopwatches and mapping the route. As the transport slowed for a staged delivery obstruction, a stolen municipal orange sanitation truck swung sideways, blocking the path. Instantly, modified flashbangs detonated, packing the guards' skulls with static and shattering the windows. No shots were fired and no one was killed. A strategic calculation by Shankar Mehta's network to avoid turning a federal robbery into a capital case, which would multiply FBI resources. Within 40 seconds of the block, Kane ignited a modified high-pressure thermal lance, burning through the armored steel doors at 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit in just 38 seconds. The cargo was thrown into 2 modified vans waiting behind the legitimate scaffolding screen. By the time Chicago police arrived at 7:47 a.m., the vans were gone, having vanished into a pre-mapped network of underground service tunnels. The Hall was completely in the wind, and back in her Gold Coast apartment, the inside architect was already collecting her prize. Just 2 days later, Shell account in Cyprus wired $62,000 directly to Shankar Mehta, disguised beautifully as a consulting fee from a non-existent architectural firm. It was a flawless execution, but the crew made one fatal mistake. The 91-second ambush on Jewelers Row was clinical, but it immediately triggered a massive multi-agency response that would slowly dismantle Priya Shankar Mehta's entire network. The Chicago Police Department's Major Crimes Division launched the initial investigation under case number CPD 2026-0317C. Within the first 6 hours, detectives flooded their command center with 47 surveillance camera feeds from the surrounding blocks. Within 12 hours, they tracked the route of the stolen orange municipal sanitation truck and established a preliminary suspect count. But local authorities quickly realized they were dealing with something far beyond a standard street robbery. The flashbangs recovered at the scene had been professionally modified, their delay fuses shortened from 1.5 seconds to a lethal 0.8 seconds, a tactic requiring deep, specialized demolition knowledge. Recognizing the interstate commerce implications and the sheer sophistication of the heist, Special Agent in Charge Renata Volkov, head of the FBI's Chicago Field Office Violent Crimes Task Force, moved swiftly. Within 48 hours, Volkov formally seized federal jurisdiction under Title 18, United States Code, Section 1951, the Hobbs Act. Federal case number CV2E260088 was officially opened, and the clock began ticking for the task force's 3 specialized working groups. The first major break came from the physical forensics team working alongside the FBI Laboratory Division's Latent Print Operations Unit out of Quantico. Technicians processing the abandoned thermal lance recovered 12 distinct contact points. 11 belonged to the victims or were heavily degraded, but the 12th was a goldmine, a partial palm print with 43 ridge points and a distinct scar interruption on the hypothenar eminence. The laboratory ran this print through the FBI's next-generation identification system, expanding the database pool to include military service records. After an intense 11-hour search, the system flag returned a definitive match. Marcus Durrell Kane, a former U.S. Army Ranger with an extensive federal record for high-profile vault burglaries. While forensics hunted Kane, the Digital Exploitation Unit attacked the telecommunications grid. Armed with a geofenced cellular data warrant covering a 12-block radius around the ambush site, analysts identified 11 devices present during that critical 91-second window that had also clustered together during reconnaissance dates earlier that month. 7 belonged to legitimate transit workers. 3 were burner phones killed hours after the heist, but the 4th device had an altered hardware exploit. Despite the sophisticated spoofing, that device had briefly connected to a commercial coffee shop Wi-Fi network on Michigan Avenue during a scouting run. The MAC address was exposed, leading agents straight to a Best Buy cash purchase in Indiana. Security footage from the register identified the buyer as logistics coordinator Teodoro Vance Barrows. Federal grand jury subpoenas immediately pierced Barrows' financial trails, exposing the cash payments to Meridian Scaffold Solutions, the front company that had legally filed the Wabash Avenue permit. Then, on March 31st, a voluntary interview with a mid-level gem dealer inside the Dirksen Federal Building added the final human element placing Barrows directly at a jewelry trade show weeks prior, aggressively digging for Loomis transfer schedules. The investigation reached a fever pitch when a registered FBI confidential informant, CI designation CF202644, broke the case wide open by naming Priya Shankar Mehta. Within 48 hours, investigators pulled her phone records, exposing a direct pattern of encrypted communications with Barrows. Her financial records revealed the smoking gun, a $62,000 wire transfer from a Cypriot shell account, structured as a fake consulting fee, hitting her account just 2 days after the heist. But as the net tightened, federal agents faced an explosive logistical nightmare. Kane had fled Illinois, tracing back to a remote, heavily fortified 14-acre ranch outside Fernley, Nevada. Satellite sweeps and ground-penetrating radar confirmed the recent construction of a reinforced concrete subsurface vault beneath an outbuilding. Facing an armored bunker, an elite ex-Ranger sharpshooters, and an international flight risk in Chicago, the FBI requested the legendary hostage rescue team from Quantico. The tactical plan required absolute pinpoint synchronization across 3 separate jurisdictions to prevent the suspects from alerting one another or destroying the remaining $24 million haul. At exactly 4:45 a.m. on Tuesday, May 12, 2026, the simultaneous takedowns began. In Gary, Indiana, a 12-person tactical team swarmed Barrows' residence, taking him down in his sweatpants without a single shot fired. In his bedroom, agents seized a master ledger detailing the entire conspiracy. In Chicago's ultra-exclusive Gold Coast, a financial crimes arrest team breached Shankar Mehta's building on North Dearborn Street. She answered the door fully dressed with a packed travel bag containing a fraudulent Canadian passport and $9,000 in cash, arrested with mere minutes to spare. Meanwhile, the main assault was unfolding in the high desert of Fernley, Nevada. HRT Commander David Orrick ordered an 8-operator blocking formation on the ranch access road while sniper teams secured the tree line under total darkness. A Washoe County helicopter circled at high altitude, feeding real-time thermal imaging to the command post. The open terrain made any approach incredibly high risk. At 5:02 a.m. Pacific Time, Commander Orrick's voice boomed through an exterior speaker system, identifying the FBI and demanding a surrender. 47 agonizing seconds tick by. Suddenly, the front door flies open. Marcus Durrell Kane walks out onto the porch with his hands raised. As the heavy steel handcuffs click shut, Kane looks directly at the tactical commander and mutters a chilling admission, "I figured it was the Lance." The tactical entry into the concrete vault was executed immediately, exposing a massive cache of stolen treasure hidden beneath the floorboards. The recovery inside that remote Nevada desert outpost exposed the true staggering scale of this international criminal conspiracy. Inside Marcus Kane's subterranean concrete vault, FBI evidence technicians uncovered a massive cache of stolen treasure: 1,043 individual cut diamonds, 41 loose sapphires in rare yellow, blue, and padparacha varieties, and 64 gold bullion wafers. In total, federal asset teams secured $19.2 million from that single subsurface bunker, representing roughly 80% of the original Loomis cargo haul. But the remaining $4.8 million had already breached American borders. The fallout quickly shifted to Western Europe, where the FBI's legal attaché office in Brussels teamed up with the Belgian Federal Police's Diamond Crime Unit. In Antwerp, the diamond capital of the world, international investigators tracked a high-volume fence operating under a legitimate gem trading front. His name was Casimir Andrei Draca, a Romanian national using a Luxembourg shell company called Piedra Azul GmbH to dilute the stolen stones through multi-layered, highly complex trade infrastructures. Draca was arrested in Belgium on May 14, 2026, and high-stakes extradition proceedings to the United States remain ongoing. Back in the United States, the legal hammer fell hard on Priya Shankar Mehta and her co-conspirators. Federal prosecutors in the Northern District of Illinois filed a sweeping grand jury indictment charging Marcus Kane, Teodoro Barrows, and Shankar Mehta with conspiracy, armed robbery affecting interstate commerce, and the use of a destructive device during a federal crime. That weapons enhancement alone carries a mandatory consecutive 10-year minimum. Facing a mountain of evidence, Barrows shattered the network's wall of silence. On June 3, 2026, he entered into a formal cooperation agreement, pleading guilty to a reduced charge of conspiracy. In exchange for an 8-year sentencing recommendation, Barrows handed prosecutors his master ledger, A devastating, self-incriminating roadmap that completely solidified the federal case against the remaining defendants. Priya Shankar Mehta, the disgraced former insurance fraud investigator, who used her insider access to architect the perfect crime, was denied bail by a federal judge who cited her packed travel bag and fraudulent Canadian passport as definitive flight risks. As she awaits her January 2027 trial date inside a federal holding cell, the broader implications of her actions have sent shockwaves straight through the entire armored transport industry. The case fundamentally exposed a systemic structural vulnerability in global supply chain logistics. The fact that an internal risk assessment written by Shankar Mehta herself laid out the exact blueprint for this heist proves that companies are sitting on critical vulnerabilities. While the 3 ambushed Loomis guards have remarkably returned to duty, corporate leadership is facing intense pressure to adopt mandatory route variance protocols and encrypted manifest scheduling to ensure an inside threat can never happen again. The 91-second ambush on Jewelers Row was a masterclass in criminal execution, but the relentless multi-agency investigation that followed proved that no matter how clean your blueprint is, the feds will decode the trail. 7 people are behind bars, $19 million has been recovered, and somewhere in the European gem trade, a diamond that once sat in a Chicago vault is sitting on someone's finger without them ever knowing its dark history. Hit that subscribe button right now to stay completely ahead of the next major federal